Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric Entertaining series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, more specifically in this instance, the work-in-progress Atari Jaguar core. And I would say every other comment on the core preview videos is whether or not a single RAM core is coming. Well, I'm happy to tell you a few days ago, a single RAM core built. I was going to do this video earlier, but then Sega Saturn went to update. Also, I had to move things around. But I know the majority of you do not have dual RAM builds, so now today you can test the work-in-progress single RAM build of the Jaguar core. Do beware, this is not an update all. You will have to manually install the file from the MiSTer FPGA Discord under the Unstables Nightly channel, and people test other cores inside of the actual Atari Jaguar chat as well, because people are doing multiple builds just to try to get the best compatibility. Before you get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But the Atari Jaguar core has been nothing short of amazing, and just how quickly it has improved over the last 3 or 4 months. It went from playing like 5 games total, not very well, to now playing the large majority of the Atari Jaguar library. But again, it required dual RAM, and I understand that not many people have dual RAM builds because for the most part it hasn't really been required whatsoever. There is a dual RAM PlayStation 1 core, there is a dual RAM Sega Saturn core, but they also work extremely well on single RAM. The only other core that required dual RAM with no single RAM variant was Jaguar up until just a few days ago, but now it is here, and that means thousands upon thousands of new people can play the core, test it, and help report bugs. And I'm playing Skyhammer here, maybe one of the most impressive and intense 3D games on the core, just to see how it's performing on single RAM with all of the different latencies as far as the RAM access times are concerned. And I don't want to get into cast latencies and everything like that, but it does change things up ever so slightly to get this working. But again, you're going to see a lot more improvements come to the core in the next couple months, maybe even a year. But the fact that it can run Skyhammer and run it this well with CPU turbo enabled is nothing short of impressive, because I do really feel like this is the game that pushes the Jaguar more than any other game. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me, what do you think the most visually impressive Jaguar game is? For me, it's definitely Skyhammer. But again, be aware that some of the games that run on the dual RAM core are going to be a little bit trickier to get running on the single RAM core as of today. In the end of the video, I'll show you the 2 games that I previewed previously that do not work for me on single RAM, but again, expect improvements as we go on. Now moving over to what probably is the Atari Jaguar's best game, maybe alongside Alien vs Predator, is the original Rayman, and this is working absolutely flawlessly on the single RAM core. I do have CPU turbo enabled, but I do that on the dual RAM core as well to remove any of the slowdown that can occur. But as far as the visuals are concerned, as far as the music is concerned, control and overall playability, I can't really tell any difference between the dual RAM core and the single RAM core. If you want to see a side-by-side test of these 2 cores in action, leave me a comment down below, and maybe I'll make that video for next week so you can see if there are any differences. But I try not to make these things too far ahead because the core is constantly being updated, so I don't want to make something that have to go in and completely redo it because the cores have changed. But Rayman is such an incredible game, and it's a game that I feel like a lot of people would want to play on Atari Jaguar, but because of the previous dual RAM requirement, not many people were actually able to test. I'm able to test pretty much everything because I have so many different MiSTer builds and different configurations to be able to do these core testing videos for you, but I know a lot of people don't want to lose their analog connection on a single RAM build because they have it hooked up to a CRT or a PVM, and maybe Jaguar wasn't enough of a selling point to change up their overall install, and that's why it's awesome that the developers of this core have gone in and tried to make it work as well as they could on single RAM, and that is absolutely awesome, and it's just going to bring more people to the Jaguar party. And while it isn't the best console of all time and it doesn't have the biggest library, there are a handful of games I would consider must-plays. Things like Iron Soldier, Rayman, Alien vs Predator, Skyhammer. There's a lot of fun to be had. And I know the next question on your mind is going to be, does the sound suffer at all because it's single RAM versus dual RAM? So you know that's my segue into the sound sample. Go ahead and listen to Rayman for 45 seconds. I'll be back and test more games on the single RAM core. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more crunchiness in the sound effect there when you're picking up the ore, but that could be in the dual RAM core as well. I'd have to sit down and actually test them side by side. But one of the other games on Atari Jaguar that definitely is 100% worth playing is Iron Soldier. Sure, it doesn't have as much texture mapping as stuff like Alien vs. Predator or even something like Skyhammer does, but it is one of those games that got its life started on the Jaguar, and it is a game that is worth checking out. And the good news is all the footage you're seeing here, this entire video is from the single RAM core, and Iron Soldier again is performing exactly as I would expect it to. And I would say while none of the Atari Jaguar games have the best frame rate in the world when it comes to 3D, there's nothing in Iron Soldier that makes me feel like it's running any worse than the dual RAM core. If you are a huge Jaguar fan, you let me know down below what you think of the footage and overall motion cadence and frame rate, because again, I haven't played the most Jaguar in my life, so it is one of those situations. Maybe this is running 1 or 2 frames slower than it should. I really wouldn't be able to notice, but it's infinitely playable and all of the graphics are drawing correctly. And that is the thing about changing this from dual RAM to single RAM. It could present glitches in certain games, but I haven't seen any of those yet. The visuals remain the same across both cores. Maybe in Rayman there was a little bit more static in that ore pickup, but otherwise it seems to just be adhering to what you would expect, dual RAM to single RAM. And again, don't get too excited because this isn't still a finished core. There's going to be games that refuse to play. Stuff like Alien vs. Predator, stuff like Fight for Life are going to be very tricky to get running, and that is just down to the overall timings and builds when they actually compile this core. It is a intense core as far as the build is concerned, and that's why some builds can vary from others. And the interesting thing, if you're not aware, is when you actually build a core, you build multiple versions of that core. It's got the exact same code, but Quartus will actually organically test different variants as far as the layup of all of the logic in the FPGA to try to get the most efficient build. So you can give it the same code, run Quartus 10 times, get 10 different cores out the back, and maybe only 2 of the 10 of those are going to end up running something like Alien vs. Predator, and that's a very interesting organic result for a purely digital device. Moving on to a game we haven't tested yet, Towers 2. Big thanks to Andy D for grabbing the footage from this one. This is another game that is being played on the single RAM core, and while it definitely is a little bit janky and doesn't run the best, I'd just kind of it down to being Towers 2 and not the actual core. But there is a lot of love involved in this game. You can tell the developers are really trying to make a full 3D RPG in the first person viewpoint. And I do love the fact that you get full texture mapping on the floor, on the ceiling, as well as of course the walls. And I do like when you actually move in and out of the view, you can see some of the shadows and everything rendering in the background. Again, Towers 2 is definitely a game. It is antiquated at this point in time, but it does show that there was a lot of inventive creative gameplay on the Atari Jaguar, and there is stuff to play. And again, for the single RAM core, I don't see this thing doing anything other than it would on the dual RAM core, and that is going to be great because again, the best part about MiSTer FPGA is it allows so many people to play so many games, and now with a single RAM variant, more people can play the Jaguar. And here is your second sound sample, because I'd say the soundtrack to Towers 2 is actually quite good. So listen for 35 seconds and I'll be right back with more. Definitely an ominous soundtrack, and it sounds great coming out of the single RAM core, and it sounds exactly the same coming out of the dual RAM core. So if you want to play Towers 2 today, definitely check it out, but do be aware because this core is still work in progress. Don't expect to be able to play any single game from start to finish. I know a lot of games can be finished, but it's one of those things. Don't sit down and dedicate all of your time to beating Towers 2 because you never know. It might crash 2-3 hours into the game, and you may have to wait for a new core to come out to get past that. I have absolutely no idea, but I just want people to remember when things are not an update, all that means they are just here for test and having fun, so don't expect to have perfection and you won't be disappointed. Now, as far as the new single RAM cores are concerned, there are 17 different build files that you can test. I tested 3 at random as far as Alien vs. Predator were concerned, and I wasn't able to get a single one of those cores to actually boot up the game. You'd get audio in the background, but I couldn't get an image compared to the dual RAM core. But again, there was another 14 I could have tested to see if that worked. I'm sure maybe one one of them in there would. The same thing for Fight for Life. I was able to get into the game, into the character selection screen, but as soon as I actually tried to load into the game, it froze and I just had to reset the core. So the single RAM core is here. It's definitely slightly lesser than the dual RAM core because it is newer, but it is still fundamentally impressive stuff. And if you want to play or test Atari Jaguar games on your MiSTer FPGA today and you only have a single RAM stick, you're going to be able to do so, and that is awesome because it's going to bring a ton more people to the party. If you have any questions, leave them down below, but we're done and go play some Jaguar. Bye-bye.